What does it mean to carry the weight of a god on your back? Is it destiny or is it a cruel trick of fate? Imagine opening your eyes to the world and realizing you are not ordinary. Imagine that from the first breath you take, people do not see you as a child, but as a sign, a symbol, something more than flesh and blood. What does it feel like to be worshipped when all you ever wanted was to simply live? That was the life of Chandre Oram, a man from West Bengal, India, who was born with a tail and who spent the rest of his years caught between the reverence of millions and the silence of his own loneliness. And if you are here, drawn into stories like this, then do not let this moment slip past you. Subscribe now, because every story told is a door that opens only once. Miss it and it closes forever. The story begins in a dusty village outside of Alipurduar in the green landscapes of northern Bengal. The year was 1971, a time when rural India was still deeply anchored in tradition, in rituals, and in myths that pulsed through daily life. Superstition was not superstition there, it was reality, woven into the way people farmed, prayed, married, and raised their children. And into that world, a baby was born, small, fragile, but carrying something so unusual that neighbors would never forget it. At the base of his spine, dangling like a secret, was a protrusion, a tail covered in hair, a few inches long at first, but destined to grow with him. To his mother, it was a shock. To his father, it was confusion. Was it a curse? A defect? Should they hide it? But before those questions could even settle in their hearts, the village decided for them. Whispers spread like fire in dry grass. The child was not sick, he was divine, he was Hanuman reborn. Hanuman, the mighty monkey god of Hindu legend, the symbol of strength, devotion, and protection. In every temple, Hanuman's statues bore the same feature, a long tail curling behind him as he lifted mountains, fought demons, and stood beside Lord Rama. And now, here was a child who carried that same mark in the flesh. People began to come. At first, it was neighbors sneaking quick glances. Then it was relatives, then distant villagers. They came not out of pity, but out of awe. Some touched the baby's back with trembling hands, then touched their foreheads, whispering prayers. Others brought flowers and fruits as offerings. They believed the child carried blessings, that to be near him was to be near the God himself. His parents, uncertain, bewildered, could only watch as their son's identity was written by forces beyond their control. He was no longer just Chandre, he was divine. As he grew, so too did his tail, eventually reaching about 13 inches long. For most children, childhood is a time of innocence, but for Chandra, it was a time of strange contradictions. He played with other boys, he climbed trees, he laughed, but every so often, someone would stop him mid-step, bow to him, and call him Hanuman. Imagine being a child, both envied and isolated. Imagine your friends daring each other to touch your tail for good luck, even as their parents whispered that you were sacred. For a child trying to understand himself, what could be more confusing than to be told you are both different and divine? By adolescence, the legend had hardened. People came from faraway villages, bringing their sick, their barren, their broken. Women who could not conceive begged to touch his tail. Men bowed, asking for strength, for courage, for victory in their struggles. Some brought offerings, sweets, garlands, coins. They believed his touch could heal. They believed he was a living temple. And though he was still just a boy, Chandre began to understand that he could not run from this role. He was no longer seen as simply human. He was a vessel of faith. And yet, in private moments, he was just Chandre, a boy who laughed, who longed for friendship, who dreamed of a simple life. But those dreams grew complicated as he became a man. For while villagers revered him, women feared him. Marriage, in his culture, was not simply about two people. It was about families joining, about respectability, about social acceptance, and what family would give their daughter to a man with a tail. Some whispered that to marry him would be to invite misfortune. Others said no ordinary woman could be the wife of Hanuman, and so, one by one, potential matches slipped away. He never married. That loneliness is perhaps the cruelest irony of his life. To be adored by strangers, yet rejected in intimacy. To be touched by thousands of hands, but never held in love. Chandre himself admitted this. He confessed that while people bowed at his feet, he never found a partner who could accept him fully. In his words, women were afraid, and so, even as he was treated like a god, he lived like an exile in his own heart. But Chandre did not retreat from the identity given to him. Instead, he leaned into it. He styled his hair in the image of Hanuman, tied his tail neatly, and allowed people to continue to worship. If he could not escape the myth, perhaps he could control it. He became known far beyond his village. Journalists came, photographers, television crews, stories spread across India and then to the wider world. The monkey man of India, they called him. Some came with respect, others with curiosity, and still others with the cruel fascination that treats human difference as spectacle. But Chandre remained calm, smiling, soft-spoken. He did not rage against it. He accepted the role the world gave him. What is striking about his life is the balance he carried between burden and gift. For villagers, he was a source of hope. When they touched his tail, when they prayed before him, they believed in a better tomorrow, and perhaps that belief, whether or not it was rooted in truth, did bring them comfort. In that sense, Chandre did become a healer, not by miracle, but by faith. Yet for himself, the tale was a lifelong sentence, a reminder of the love he could not find, the normal life he could never live. He bore the weight of other people's dreams, even as his own quietly faded. To watch his story unfold is to confront the duality of human perception. A doctor would call him a man with spina bifida, a congenital defect. A villager would call him an avatar of Hanuman, a walking miracle. A journalist might call him a curiosity, a headline. But who was he to himself? Was he proud of being revered or weary of it? Was he honored to be seen as Hanuman or haunted by it? The truth, perhaps, is that he was all of these things at once. The tragedy and beauty of his life lie in this paradox. He was never allowed to simply be human. To his last breath, he carried the mark of the divine, and with it the loneliness of being different. And yet, in that difference, he became unforgettable. His story traveled across oceans, across languages. He became a figure both revered and pitied, both admired and mourned. And so the question lingers, was Chandre Oram chosen or cursed? Was he blessed to be seen as a god or condemned never to be seen as a man? Perhaps the truth is that he was both. Perhaps the gods do not choose only the mighty and the strong, but sometimes the fragile, the lonely, the ones who never asked for such a destiny. Perhaps the meaning of his life was not in whether he truly was Hanuman reborn, but in what he forced us all to confront, the way we look at difference, the way we worship what we do not understand, and the way we forget that behind every myth is a beating human heart. In the end, Chandre Oram's legacy is not just about a man with a tail. It is about the power of belief, the cruelty of isolation, and the strange, fragile space between humanity and divinity. His life reminds us that gods are not always born in temples. Sometimes they are born in small villages, in fragile bodies, in lonely hearts. And when we see them, we must ask ourselves, are we honoring them, or are we simply refusing to see the human being beneath the myth? Because perhaps the true blessing, the true miracle, is not the tale at all. Perhaps it is the reminder that every life, no matter how unusual, has the power to make us question the boundaries between the sacred and the ordinary, the divine and the human. And maybe, just maybe, that is what it really means to carry the mark of a god.